What happens when someone who has stayed silent for years finally speaks about a man celebrated across the world? Jeff Bezos' son has ended his long silence. What he revealed is not just personal, it's deeply critical. In a video that went viral only hours ago, Preston Bezos shared an unexpected statement. For decades, he avoided the spotlight, never addressing his father or the family's broken marriage. But now he has spoken out. His message, though short, carries significant weight. Why now? What pushed him to speak? And what truth has become too heavy to hide? This is more than a family dispute. It's a direct challenge to a legacy. If Jeff Bezos' own son questions his reputation, can that image still hold? Let us know your views in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and enable notifications so you stay updated on the next untold stories of billionaires. An unseen presence. Preston Bezos was never expected to become part of this story, not in the way his father did. While Jeff Bezos transformed a small garage startup into one of the most influential companies in the world, his eldest son stayed far from attention. No media appearances, no controversies, and no online presence for years. Few even knew his name, let alone his perspective. That silence only fueled curiosity. Born in 2002 to Jeff Bezos and Mackenzie Scott, Preston was raised in circumstances unlike most. By his teenage years, Amazon had grown into a trillion-dollar empire, and his father was a global symbol of wealth, technology, and influence. Meanwhile, Preston remained behind a carefully built shield of privacy. Even photos of him were rare. Occasionally, tabloids captured glimpses at an event or graduation, but never enough to create a full picture. Friends who did speak described him as calm, serious, and thoughtful. He was not known for flaunting his fortune or chasing the spotlight. He didn't start a clothing brand, didn't appear at red carpet events, and never seemed interested in fame. Instead, he preferred a quiet, private life. Some suggested his distance came from a desire to escape the weight of his last name. But separation does not provide lasting protection. Divorce leaves an impact on children, even those born into extraordinary wealth. And Preston, though outwardly quiet, has not been untouched by those effects. Public attention, regardless of his discretion, has never fully gone away. What does it mean to be the son of a man capable of buying entire companies, or even more? How does someone build a personal identity when his father is one of the most powerful figures in global business? His mother is a respected philanthropist, and his family name constantly dominates headlines. The 2019 divorce only intensified these questions. Jeff and Mackenzie have always emphasized mutual respect and shared parenting in public, yet the finer details remain private. There have been no interviews featuring the children, no intentional leaks, and no books revealing family dynamics. Preston, the eldest, has maintained a steady silence. If he holds views about the divorce or about his father's relationship with Lauren Sanchez, he has chosen not to share them. But his quiet approach is not without purpose, it is deliberate. Over time, subtle indications suggest that Preston is observant. Those close to him say he asks challenging questions and speaks up when something seems off. He avoids open confrontation, but he is also not easily influenced. He is steadily shaping into a person guided by his own principles, perspective, and perhaps private battles. Within exclusive social circles, it is rumored that Preston has formed strong opinions not only about business and technology, but also about the weight of influence, responsibility, and public legacy. Still, he has consistently declined opportunities to address the public. Even as Jeff expands into space exploration, logistics, and artificial intelligence, Preston has remained outside the spotlight. Yet, in recent months, this silence appears to be shifting. People close to him have quietly hinted that a change may be coming. A subtle shift in his tone, a different kind of energy. Those who once saw Preston as a quiet presence are now beginning to believe he no longer intends to remain in the background. That perhaps he has something to say, not only to his father but to the world. What no one could have anticipated at the time was the ripple effect that came when the usually silent heir finally chose to speak. The divorce changed everything. When Jeff and Mackenzie Bezos announced their separation in January 2019, the headlines spread almost instantly, faster than the public could even absorb the news. What appeared at first to be a respectful and amicable split between two high-profile figures quickly turned into one of the most talked-about personal sagas of the decade. Speculation mounted, news outlets followed, and suddenly, a family known for its privacy and control was caught in a media frenzy far beyond their reach. The first joint statement from Jeff and Mackenzie attempted to frame the situation. They expressed gratitude, spoke of co-parenting, and emphasized their continued friendship. There were no accusations, no legal battles in court, and no dramatic leaks. But within days, the story shifted. The National Enquirer published an explosive report alleging Jeff's affair with former TV host Lauren Sanchez. Private messages were revealed, tabloid photos circulated, and in a matter of hours, the narrative of the divorce transformed. To the outside world, it became another scandal involving the ultra-wealthy. But within the family, the reality was far more personal and serious. Mackenzie, long regarded as thoughtful and reserved, chose silence. She neither confirmed nor publicly confronted the affair. Instead, she focused her energy on raising her children and later on major philanthropic initiatives. For the children, though, especially Preston, the situation carried deeper weight. At 19, he was old enough to grasp the details but still too young to escape the emotional impact. Relatives note that the divorce represented more than the end of a marriage. It disrupted the balance within the Bezos household itself. Everything shifted. The stability that had carried the family through Amazon's rapid rise began to weaken. While the divorce was settled legally and with significant financial generosity, Mackenzie received 25% of their Amazon shares. Valued at over $35 billion, the emotional cost was never publicly measured. Jeff's new and very visible relationship with Lauren Sanchez only intensified public attention. Soon, the two were seen everywhere, on private yachts, at elite parties, and high-profile charity events. The media coverage was constant, but as cameras followed their romance, Jeff's children stayed silent. Preston, especially, said nothing. He avoided being photographed with the couple, skipped public outings, and refrained from posting any indirect reactions online. He simply withdrew from view. Yet, even as he stayed quiet, public interest remained strong. Over time, murmurs began. Family friends noticed that Preston was deeply shaken by the divorce, not because of financial matters or media headlines, but because of what the separation revealed. The father he had once looked up to, a disciplined, brilliant figure who built rockets and reshaped e-commerce, now appeared human, vulnerable, and flawed. Some close to the family suggested that Preston was uncomfortable with how quickly events unfolded. The transition seemed not only abrupt but unsettling. Others claimed he believed his father's decisions were becoming impulsive and less calculated, as though his once unshakable control was slowly slipping away. None of this was ever confirmed. There were no official statements, interviews, or public declarations, only silence. And within that silence, unease grew. The line between being a reserved son and a secretive one became blurred, and Preston stepped into the latter role. He observed quietly, listened carefully, and remembered. Years went by. Jeff pressed forward with his ventures, Mackenzie gave away billions in philanthropy, and the world kept moving. Yet within the family, the aftershocks of divorce still lingered. Trust had been strained, and roles had shifted. And while the media eventually shifted its focus elsewhere, the real story, the one unfolding within the family, remained. Few understood it then, but Preston has carried that weight ever since. During this time, those close to him began noticing subtle changes. At family gatherings, he grew more distant, often stepping away whenever discussions turned to business or future plans. Friends from his Princeton years described a young man preoccupied with thoughts he rarely expressed. Unlike his siblings, who seemed to adjust more smoothly to their new circumstances, Preston bore the family's transformation in a heavier, more personal way. This was the first visible crack. For years, Preston Bezos lived in the shadow of one of the world's most influential families. With nearly limitless opportunities available, he chose to remain quiet, almost invisible to the outside world. But silence never lasts forever. For Preston, the first real break didn't come through scandal or internal conflict. It came instead at the launch of a television series. In 2022, Amazon prepared to release The Rings of Power, a billion-dollar adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien's universe. The project drew global attention, not only for its unprecedented cost, but also for the immense responsibility of following the Lord of the Rings. For Jeff Bezos, it was more than entertainment. It was a defining cultural milestone. Cameras captured every moment, critics analyzed every detail, and the future of Amazon Prime Video seemed tied to the show's reception. At the UK premiere, Jeff took the stage at an event designed with precision, reflecting the controlled image of the Bezos name. Yet, within the glamorous setting, one remark stood out. Jeff shared what his son had told him before the screening. "Dad, don't screw this up." The audience laughed, and the line became headline material. To most, it was simply an odd anecdote from a usually reserved billionaire. But for those who truly knew Preston, it was clear he was serious. There was no humor in his words. That short but genuine remark was among the first times the public had ever heard him speak openly. And it wasn't simply about elves or rings. His concern carried a deeper weight. Preston had been a devoted Tolkien fan his entire life, immersed not only in the films but in the original books, the lore, and the underlying principles. Those close to him often said he viewed Tolkien's work as sacred because it explored themes of power, corruption, and moral duty. According to friends, what unsettled him wasn't the film's quality, but what it represented: the turning of something meaningful into just another commercial product. And this wasn't the first time he had felt that way. To Preston, The Rings of Power was more than entertainment. It was symbolic. It reflected a larger trend he had been noticing for years: the way legacy, myth, and values were being reshaped into marketable goods. What struck him hardest was how it echoed fears within his own family. A slow loss of integrity in the pursuit of growth, values distorted for the sake of influence, and the sense that no one else seemed willing to speak up. Few realized at the time how much thought Preston had invested into these ideas. He had spent countless hours studying Tolkien and analyzing stories about authority and corruption. In college, he had even written extensively on the responsibilities tied to influence and how quickly noble goals can be derailed by unchecked ambition. Friends later revealed that Preston often drew troubling parallels between the themes in his favorite works and what he was witnessing in his own family's evolution. So, when Jeff brought Preston's private remark to the stage, it was like striking a match on dry grass. The statement was brief, sharp, and heavy with meaning. It carried weight not just as a critique of a show, but as a son's unspoken reminder to a father he believed was losing sight of what truly mattered. From that moment forward, the atmosphere shifted. Even in his absence, Preston's influence was felt more strongly. His name began circulating in private conversations among those close to the family. Some asked, if he said that publicly, what has he been saying privately? One insider confirmed that Preston had quietly voiced such concerns for years, not only about Amazon's creative direction, but also about broader issues of ethics, responsibility, and shifting priorities after the divorce. They suggested the Tolkien remark was simply the first time his unease had surfaced in public. Looking back, the moment seemed less like coincidence and more like intentional signaling, a message not yet fully understood by the world. But eventually, it would be. In the months after Rings of Power premiered, subtle yet important changes began surfacing within the Bezos family. Preston became increasingly outspoken during family discussions. He questioned choices that felt rooted in ego rather than in lasting benefit to society. He challenged his father's space ambitions, asking whether resources might be better directed toward urgent issues on Earth. He raised questions about Amazon's labor practices and the environmental toll of rapid expansion. Preston had broken his silence. At first, it was barely noticeable. No official announcement, no media statement, just a short, grainy video circulating online. The clip, believed to show Preston Bezos speaking emotionally about his father, lasted less than 2 minutes. But the message was clear. Jeff Bezos' son had finally spoken out against his father, and it wasn't flattering. The young man, believed by many to be Preston, spoke only a few carefully chosen words. "I was right. It's time to tell the truth." The authenticity of the video is still debated, but its impact was immediate. Online discussion surged as analysts and insiders began dissecting what it could mean. Was this the moment some had quietly anticipated? The heir of one of the world's most influential families finally breaking his silence? If it was indeed Preston, his delivery stood out. He wasn't angry or arrogant, just weary, as though years of waiting and holding back had finally taken their toll. One statement in particular resonated widely with both viewers and commentators. "Silence becomes a sin when you know the truth." The video appeared to be filmed in what looked like a private study or library, books visible in the background. Observers familiar with Preston's interests pointed out that many titles were works on ethics, philosophy, and social responsibility. The setting itself seemed intentional, reinforcing the intellectual weight of his remarks. Although the family has issued no confirmation, several sources close to them suggest the video could be authentic. Some even claim Jeff Bezos was informed during a private meeting and appeared visibly unsettled. Reports also surfaced that Mackenzie Scott abruptly left a scheduled event after hearing the news. Still, none of this has been officially verified. That uncertainty is what makes the video so powerful. For years, Preston has been seen as a quiet observer in Bezos' orbit. Now, with a single ambiguous message, he may have shifted the narrative. He didn't identify anyone or make direct accusations, yet his words seemed directed at his father. So, what truth was he hinting at? No one can say with certainty. But another line from the video quickly went viral. "A legacy isn't what you build, it's what you leave behind. And we're leaving behind a mess." Was he pointing to Amazon's controversies? The fallout of his parents' divorce, the personal cost of power, the environmental toll of corporate expansion, or the wealth inequality tied to his family's fortune? The only thing left is speculation, and that speculation has sparked a media storm. If this was Preston's decision to step forward, the question is not just why now, but what happens next, and what consequences could follow. Regardless of its authenticity, the video spread rapidly. Within hours, it was everywhere online, debated by analysts and heavily covered in the media. Some dismissed it as baseless rumor, others argued it was real. Either way, the conversation shifted. Inside Amazon, reports surfaced of an urgent executive meeting. According to one insider, the tension wasn't about financial fallout, but about the personal implications. If Preston truly spoke out, it would represent far more than a family dispute. It would have posed a direct challenge to the legacy of one of the world's most carefully managed public figures. The impact went far beyond family disagreements. Preston's apparent criticism touched on areas Amazon and Jeff Bezos have long struggled to contain: labor disputes, environmental concerns, the concentration of wealth and influence, and the broader responsibilities of global tech companies. Coming from someone with close personal knowledge of both the family and the company, these remarks could not be dismissed as outside noise. Public reactions outside Amazon were mixed, ranging from shock to respect. Several celebrities shared cryptic posts about power, family, and legacy. Some even praised it as an unusual display of honesty. One tech founder tweeted, "There's a difference between building an empire and creating something lasting. Sometimes it takes the next generation to remind us." Environmental groups quickly seized the moment, interpreting Preston's words as a validation of their long-standing criticism of Amazon's environmental record. Labor advocates saw it as potential support for their push to improve warehouse conditions. Social justice voices connected it to wealth inequality and corporate accountability. So far, the family has offered no official response. Jeff Bezos remains silent. Mackenzie Scott has made no public comments, and Preston himself has not followed up. No interviews, no further explanation, just the video and its aftermath. That silence has only amplified the message. Viewers and analysts are now revisiting years of public appearances, interviews, and family details, searching for hidden meaning. Was this a planned statement or a moment of raw emotion? A carefully delivered message or an attempt to distance himself? No one has answers, but the tone, timing, and ambiguity felt strikingly personal. It was not a scandal or a full disclosure, but rather a quiet frustration surfacing in public. Whether confirmed or denied, the clip has already shifted how people talk about Jeff Bezos, not only as a businessman, but as a father. For the first time, the carefully constructed image of family legacy appears fragile. And if Preston chooses to speak further, the silence protecting one of the world's most powerful empires may finally begin to crack. And beyond the boardroom and private family matters, the world is paying close attention. Public opinion, what people think, how they react, and the way they interpret it, adds a new dimension to a legacy already under scrutiny. The public has made its voice heard. As the clip continues trending and dominating headlines, reactions keep pouring in. Some viewers are shocked, while others admit they aren't surprised. After all, very few truly understand what life has been like for Jeff Bezos' son as an adult. The immense wealth, the relentless spotlight, the demand to remain both invisible and flawless. It's a reality most cannot imagine. Yet the emotions Preston shared have resonated with many. One user on X wrote, "I don't care how rich you are. Watching your parents separate, watching the world cheer for someone you hardly see, that's enough to damage anyone." Another viral comment summed it up. "Divorce affects children, billionaire kids included." Jeff Bezos may remain at the peak of global success, but his story now carries a more personal human layer. Because when a son questions his father's legacy, the conversation is no longer just about achievements. It's also about what was lost. So, what do you think? If your own child publicly challenged the legacy you've built over decades, would it remain untouchable? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next hidden truth behind the billionaire world.